we're talking about brain health for women over 50. Hi, I'm GloryB, and this is GloryB-TV, a lifestyle channel for mature women who want to look fabulous, feel amazing, and age gracefully. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do by clicking the red subscribe button on the lower right, and then click that little gray bell, and you'll be notified every time there's a new video, and all of the videos will relate to you. Well, I'm here in this video with Dr. Denise Shostek, and we're talking about brain health for women. Now, one of the things that made me think about this is because when my sister-in-law's dad was put into a facility, a very nice facility for memory care. He was 89, he was having some memory issues, but some of the people who were there when I visited were maybe around 70, some of them were under 70, and not only had memory issues, but they also had logic issues. Like some of them would talk and they wouldn't even make sense. That's how badly their brains were doing with either Alzheimer's or some other version of dementia, which is the umbrella of all of the different kinds of brain problems that people can get over time. So today, first we're going to talk about brain problems that can happen once we turn 50 or once we go into menopause. And then secondly, what can we do to ensure brain health going forward long term? So let's start with some of these symptoms that you see in people just in their 50s and their 60s and their 70s that indicate, you know what, something's going wrong and we need to make some big changes.
Mm-hmm. Usually what I see is memory loss. People complain of going to the back bedroom and forgetting why they went there, and then they can't even remember. And I'm sure it's happened to a lot of our viewers. My mother used to complain about that all the time. I also hear women complain about something called brain fog. And just feeling foggy in the morning, a little bit fatigued, not real clear in the head. And another complaint I get is that people will sometimes, for instance, make a grocery list and they'll write it down, maybe forget the grocery list at home. And once they get to the grocery store, they can't even remember what they put on the list.
I've done that. I can remember two things on it. Now, you said your mother had some memory loss, but not, she died of some other issues. And my mother did get dementia over time. Her diet was horrible. And even my primary care physician, as we were sitting talking one time during one of my appointments, she said her mom was 70 and having some really what she would call intense memory loss issues already. But then she did tell me that her mother's typical day would be to have a cup of coffee and a brownie, maybe have lunch, maybe not, and then the next thing she ate was dinner. Well, my mother did the same thing. She liked her sweets, and her breakfast was a cup of coffee, maybe 2 cookies or a piece of coffee cake. Mm-hmm. I rarely saw fruit in her house unless it came from a can. And just so many things that I use in my kitchen that I cook with, I never saw in my home, including a lot of fresh greens and things like that. I remember my aunt being over one time and we had dinner, we were putting things away, and my aunt opened up the refrigerator and she looked in the bin and she said to me, "Where are your mother's fresh greens?" And I said, "Did you just meet her?" I'm like, she doesn't eat fresh greens. You've known her for a long, long time. They were not sisters, but, you know, we've read that a lot of things that have to do with keeping your brain well are doing mental exercises and reading and having good, lively discussions and physical exercise. But food is a big component of it, and some other things that we're getting in our diet in the 21st century and the 20th century before, and I'd like to hear about that from you as well.
Okay. So I think of 2 lists when I think about food for the brain. I think about the list of foods that we should eat, and I think about the list of foods that we shouldn't eat. And so what do you think we should tackle first?
Let's start with what you shouldn't eat and what we now know, scientists now know, are contributing to things from the brain.
For the brain.
The excess sugar.
So some people will drink a glass of wine every night before they go to bed, or on weekends they drink just a little bit more than one glass of wine. And so if you drink wine at night, it converts to sugar, and it converts to excess calories. And sugar is the number one no-no for the brain. It's I could just get into an entire lecture just on sugar alone and how bad it is for the brain.
And you don't mean the sugars from fruit.
I'm talking about wine.
Okay, you talk about wine.
Heavy carb
sweets.
diets,
Yeah.
a lot of heavy grain diet, like pastas, and or a lot of people do add sugar to their coffee,
Right.
or like you said, having that cup of coffee with a brownie or cookies because it's just so easy. So pastries, desserts, sugars, wine, those are like
The refined.
The
unrefined. Yeah, the refined. I'm sorry, refined carbs. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are some no-nos, along with alcohol. And Gloria and I were talking a little bit about that. I mean, a glass of wine or two a week, that's okay. But every night before you go to bed, that isn't so advisable. So we touched on alcohol, fried foods, processed foods, the foods in a can. Like just, it's not healthy. It's not nutritious. And as we age, we have to think about planning for those future years. And what we put in our body now has long-term effects for later. And so shifting over to the list of things that we should eat, I say high antioxidant foods, a strong plant-based diet. I think sometimes you do eat fish or
once in a while.
But if we do eat fish, it should be wild caught, and it should be like the fatty fish that is going to nourish the brain. So if you think about what the brain's made of, it's made primarily of fat. And so those healthy fats are going to be real good for us. So I'm not a big fan of a sustained keto diet. However, choosing good fats is important. Avocados. Okay, I cook with grapeseed oil, hemp oil, coconut oil, avocado oil, extra virgin, first cold pressed olive oil. So those kind of oils, if we're going to cook with them, I know you avoid oils, right?
Yeah, more and more I'm avoiding them.
Okay, so, but anyway, I just coach people a little bit on the oils that they should be using if they're going to cook with them. So what are some of the foods high in antioxidants? So I think about blueberries and rich, deep colored fruits and vegetables, really rich greens, kale, stay away from iceberg lettuce.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just...
There are plenty of other lettuces that are more nutritious.
Walnuts are very good for the brain as well. If you're going to choose a seed to eat, pumpkin seeds are really good. They're high in zinc, magnesium, copper, and iron. So those are some good ones. And I'm sure you've heard of dark chocolate being very, very good for the brain, high in antioxidants. But a lot of people have sugar mixed with it. So that's the two-edged sword there.
Yeah. So a lot of the doctors I follow, they say people like to hear good news about their bad habits. So it's like, oh, dark chocolate's good for you.
Yeah.
Coffee's good for you. So they even have this, I don't know if they have it inscribed on plaques, but about the bad habits. So I found that really interesting. Now, one of the things that we had talked about being really good for brain health is different kinds of algae. And I've talked about E3 Live. They have various kinds of algae related products. Some are in liquid form, some are in powder. I've shown the liquid form on some other videos. I also bought this blue Majik, which I just love. And they suggest, and I'm going to link an article below about algae for brain health that I found to be an excellent article. And just how much you should take. So this comes with a little scoop in it that's a half a teaspoon, which is like a minimum per day. I throw it in my smoothie. Other people have made some beautiful smoothie bowls and other kinds of things and chia puddings with this. It's a beautiful blue color, and it's really good for brain health. So I encourage you to read that article. It's in the description box below the video. Check that out. I found it to be really encouraging, and this isn't too expensive. And the other thing about this versus the liquid, I've given you some of the liquid before. It's kind of good. It's nasty tasting though. It really is.
Yeah, you hold your breath and chug.
Yeah, you hold your breath and you chug like 2 ounces and then follow it with some water, chase it with some water. Where this is much, you don't even taste this. It just makes it really pretty. And they also make the green kind in a powder too, but I like the blue color.
Well, you mentioning this helps me to segue to something else, and that is iodine. And people might think, iodine, how does iodine help the brain? And every cell in the body needs iodine to function. But research has lately, not even lately, I'd say as of past 20, 30 years, shown the impact of iodine on brain health. And our crops, our soil, our country is so deficient in iodine. And so
because the soil's
depleted,
then the vegetables that would have it in there in good quantities just don't have enough.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So that's why several years ago they began to iodize our salt. So I go back to Glory's Blue Magic, and it's from a seaweed source.
The Klamath Falls, the lake up in Oregon.
So this is probably excellent for brain health. So anything with algae and seaweed has iodine in it.
And I like seaweed. It's more of an Asian, I'll call it treat. But I've even bought the dried bags
those are yummy.
That are really cut up. I like the ones that's really cut up small. And I actually have a recipe on my channel here for a seaweed salad because I wanted to make it myself, because if you buy it, it's really expensive. So I'll link to that in the upper right corner.
Yeah. So look at your iodine intake if you're over 50, and if you have symptoms of hypothyroidism or even hyperthyroidism, take a really good look at your iodine. Iodine can be checked with a urine test. It can also be checked with a blood test. I know doctors that don't even check for it with tests anymore. They just supplement patients with iodine because we're deficient in it.
Now, you have another item that you found, again, going back to the soil being depleted, where people used to get fruits and vegetables, and it would help to take out aluminum, because aluminum is a really bad problem for brain health. And we live in this time in the 20th century, 21st century, where we've had so much aluminum coming into our diets that people didn't used to have. So you found some things that will help bind to aluminum and leach it out. And there are different parts of the world called the blue zones where people are living long, healthy lives. And they found that their soil there has this in it. So if the people are actually eating locally sourced produce, they're actually getting enough of this that connects to the aluminum in their body and gets rid of the aluminum.
And so there's a book that was written, and a PhD did all this work on it, and he describes all of this aluminum intake. He says that we live in the aluminum age. And so he discovered that silica binds to aluminum and can take it out of the body. But what they also discovered was people with dementia and Alzheimer's, all of them had aluminum as a heavy metal in their blood. And so
it's too much, more than most people.
Yeah. So almost every single person had this. So he wrote a book about it, and he discovered that orthosilica acid is what binds to the aluminum and can take it out of the body. And so there are people that put drops of this in their water, and some other people buy the Fiji water. Fiji water has the highest content of the orthosilica acid. So that's a real good tip for us.
Yeah. Right. Now you buy it as a liquid and add it to your water.
Yeah. I believe it's BioSil makes the drops.
Okay.
And I can look that up.
You can email me, and by the time we put this up, I can put a link to it below the description box. All right. And then what else did you bring with you?
I brought a supplement with me, and a couple years ago, I started on this supplement. I began doing a lot of research on what could really optimize my brain.
And what is it?
This is called PQQ-10. And it's coenzyme 10, but the substance that actually works on the brain is called, let's put the glasses on for this. It's a pyrrole. It's pyrrolquinoline quinone disodium salt. It's a big word, and I think it's a whole lot easier to say PQQ. I'm going to say it one more time. Pyrrolquinoline quinone disodium salt. So what it does is it works at the mitochondrial layer of the neurons in the brain. And so I decided I would try it. And I saw all these clinical trials about it. And once I got on it, I just felt a sharpness in my ability for recall. And so I've been on this for 2 years. I just take one a day. I love it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you have 4 books here that
Yes.
you also wanted to recommend.
So,
And I'll link those in the description box below as well.
a real good one here is called Why Isn't My Brain Working? It's a thick book. This is written by Datis Karazian, and I've been to his seminars, and this is an outstanding book about all the various reasons why people will have either Alzheimer's, dementia, memory issues, brain fog, or ADD, ADHD, anxiety for no reason, depression. And so he covers a lot of those issues. This book, Gloria and I love this book. It's called Superfoods, and this is, of course, is very, very good for the brain. And then I have 2 more books, and of course I have more at home. But here's another one called Switch on Your Brain, and this is written by Caroline Leaf, and she does a 21-day detox program. And this is more about your thoughts and what you allow in your brain and what you focus on. And then, of course, this is my other book called 10 Steps to Improve Your Mental Health. And this is written by a naturopathic doctor. The title of it is Beyond the Label. I know it's a little bit hard to see with some of the lighting here. So there's lots of information out there for brain health. And
now, one more thing that we talked about before we turned the camera on is what happens post-menopause. And you had said estrogen is essential for good brain health.
Yes.
So when we go through menopause, now we have less. But what do you recommend? Because some people are taking estrogen, some people aren't, So what do you recommend post-menopause? And then there's also the stressors of life, which affect us from head to toe, including the brain. And what are your recommendations for that?
So number 1, eat an optimal diet, a really clean diet. That's going to be very important. And that's organic vegetables and fruits. And I do not recommend taking estrogen. I don't even recommend taking bioidenticals. And I know that that's a big, big topic out there, but I don't think it's good long term. Menopause is not a disease to be treated. It is a passage of life, and it's natural to go through it. It's very, very important and natural. So eating a good diet, exercising, working on your thought life, managing stress, 7 to 8 hours of good solid sleep per night uninterrupted. And I don't consume soy because soy will hit those receptor sites that your estrogen is supposed to fill, and it can actually take the place of the estrogen. So I stay away from soy.
Really? So even soy sauce, Bragg's liquid aminos?
No, I mean,
so you do a little bit with that.
I do the soy.
But you don't do soy milk
No.
or tofu or...
In
a big
very
way.
rarely, yeah.
Okay.
I know people that drink soy milk every single day. I don't do that.
Yeah. Okay.
But once in a while,
I prefer almond milk myself.
or coconut milk,
Yeah.
hemp milk,
Oat milk, yeah. There are a lot of other options. Well, that's good to know. Well,
so exercise is important.
Yes.
If we don't have correct blood circulation to the brain,
even if you're doing walking and some light weights, I think that's minimum.
It's good.
And we've talked about weight training before, and I think that's important to keep you going. Now, my mom did that. I mean, she was a person who walked. She wasn't overweight. She was a reader, so the only thing left was
her diet.
The diet. It really was. So, yeah. And no one on her side ever lived as long as she did, so we don't know if other people would have developed a dementia type of thing. Yeah, because her mom died when she was 72 and her dad died in the 60s, and she doesn't have siblings, so we're not sure.
One of the things we talked about before we turned the camera on was, why do women end up having the cup of coffee and the cookies in the morning, or even for lunch or for dinner or for bedtime snack? And what happens is, in this stage of life, after 50, the kids are gone, Some people may be married, some people may not be married, some people may be alone. And at one point in our lives, we were used to being the primary person in the kitchen that made all the meals. And we're the
other
role
people
model
relied on us. Yes, right.
Yeah. And so we were used to making well-balanced meals, and all of a sudden, everybody's gone. So it's a discipline not to go for the chocolate chip cookies with the coffee and eat a healthy breakfast or eat a healthy lunch.
Or how about not even bring it into your house?
Don't bring that in your house. Keep it out.
Yeah. And it is one step at a time. Since another video with Dr. Loam, we were talking about how to get into more of a whole food plant-based diet and bit by bit and step by step. He did it step by step. I did it step by step. So
that's
I think
a good point.
I think it's easier and not as discouraging to make one step at a time, but realizing that it not only affects your heart health, your blood pressure, your ability to not have a stroke, type 2 diabetes, it keeps you from getting that, but it also protects your brain long term. Yes. So thanks for watching. Check out one of my other videos by clicking one of the images on the right side of your screen, and I'll see you in the next video.